So imagine cutting your customer response time by 75% while still improving your service quality with a team of just 20 people. So today's guest did exactly that by implementing AI in his manufacturing business. And he's convinced that this is just the beginning of a massive transformation in how we work.
Welcome to The AI-Powered Business Leader. This is the show that helps business leaders excel in the rapidly evolving environment of AI integration and implementation. We go beyond the hype to provide practical solutions for real businesses. Whether you're facing challenges like developing a clear AI strategy, upskilling your workforce, or ensuring data privacy and compliance, we've got you covered. Here is your host, Alastair McDermott.
And I'm delighted to say that today my guest is Ethan Wadsworth. Ethan, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you are a director of sales and marketing for Discrete Heat. And so this is a thermoskirt skirting heating board, which has been on TV. In the UK, it's been on Dragon's Den, which is, I think, for the Americans, the equivalent of Shark Tank. So that's a really interesting product.
Yeah, it is. This is it here, actually. This is what it's got a film on it, but this is, if I take it off, that is essentially what it is. So it's a giant aluminium radiator disguised as a skirting board. That's what we make.
Mm-hmm.
Basically for people who don't want traditional radiators, can't have underfloor heating, and obviously with our transition towards net zero and the installation of heat pumps, our business has really seen, a massive increase in both interest but also orders just in the last 12 months to 2 years.
That's awesome. Now I wanted to talk about your business, and this is probably like the second or third time in about 250 podcast episodes that I talk to the guest about their backstory. It's a really interesting business. This is a family business, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a family business. It's actually my dad who invented the product and launched the business effectively, initially, and I joined the business at 18. I've pretty much done everything from packing boxes to installing to training other new staff members, sales, and now I'm obviously sales and marketing director, and sales and marketing really does bleed into absolutely every part of the business, from product quality through to customer experience. Obviously, your standard marketing practices like website and content creation and social media, and also your sales processes, how customers are dealt with at the coalface.
And what I'm really interested in is that when we spoke, it seems to me like you have AI, again, to use that term, bleeding through everything that you do. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I first sort of stumbled across AI, like most people, through ChatGPT. As an introduction to ChatGPT, and that would have been pre ChatGPT 3, I think. So that would have been like late 2022, something like that, maybe 2 years ago now.
Super
and I remember,
early.
yeah, really early. And I remember kind of having my mind blown by all of the stupid things that it could do initially. So like anything, it was like, oh, this is interesting. How stupid is this? Let's make up a story, or let's write this article in the tone of Donald Trump, or whatever it was. That was all fun. But then, like most things, I started to think, how actually, hang on, this is useful. This actually fills in a lot of gaps for me. And so probably too early, I think I tried to implement it into our business in various ways. And every single time I went down the avenue of, training it or programming it to do something, then, a startup business basically brought out a piece of software that did what I was thinking of. So I was like, oh, forget it, let's just scrap that. So I kind of just played around with it and slowly integrated it into various parts of our workflow. And then let over the last 12 months to 2 years, the AI industry really kind of explode. And now we've got fully fledged tools that are functional and usable, and proper use cases now that have been proven.
One of the places you talked about using it a lot is your CRM, your customer relationship management tool. Can you tell me a little bit about how that works and why it's useful for you?
So our CRM system is totally unique because it's made by us, for us. I mean, for a business of our size, it's quite rare to have a full-time software developer on the books, but we do because, you know, a full-time software developer, if you find the right one, which we have, they are also okay with doing those annoying IT things like asking people to turn the computer on and off again and connecting a printer or sorting out the Wi-Fi or whatever. And yeah, the guy we've got is really good, and he's basically built our CRM system, and it's bespoke to us. So for me, a lot of the sales tasks and the customer service tasks are unique to a degree where you wouldn't necessarily have a bot deal with it, like an old style bot. You would need some level of intelligence and some level of knowledge to deal with it. But really, a lot of the processes are quite repetitive and quite monotonous. So we started to explore calling up OpenAI's API with our CRM and basically making simple requests for it to do things in advance, so that rather than it being fully automated, it's effectively semi-automated. It does a lot of the heavy lifting for a human being to then come along and approve and submit and utilize.
Right. So doing things like maybe it might write 3 variations on a response to a message, and then the human can copy paste the best one, something like that.
Yeah. So that's one example. What we've done is we've built the email communications with customers into the CRM. So you go onto the customer CRM account and you can communicate through email and text message with that customer. So I suppose one of the things that happened initially was that because you have a record of the email conversation, you effectively use that as your reference point. So when we get an email inbound from a customer, it will automatically read the previous correspondence, generate a response that it thinks is about right. And then effectively, when we come to reply to that email, rather than starting from scratch, we've got either a framework or sometimes a fully written email, because you'd be amazed, of all the various customer service requests you get, how many of them can be dealt with about 5 or 6 basic, email templates. And that's really where it developed from. I actually built a number of set templates within our email service for salespeople and customer service people to use. And then we went on from there. We went from templates to smart templates, basically.
That's a great way of putting it, smart templates, yeah. And so one of the things that we discussed a little bit in previous chat is how some people think that AI is a fad. And I think that we're both of the opinion that it's almost certainly not a fad. Can you tell me a little bit about your thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that anybody who thinks that it's a fad, they're the kind of people who are about to be swept off the pier by a massive tidal wave. It's like this is what's happening, and it's happening in a faster rate than any point in history. So, you look at the birth of the traction engine, and people saying, well, it'll never really change true farming. It's never going to change proper farming. Whatever strange, comfort that human beings give themselves by differentiating outputs and say, well, this has been done by a human, so therefore it's better, in inverted commas. Or the mobile phone, people saying, I'll never have a mobile phone. I don't want to be contacted all the time. Or people who opposed Microsoft putting free software into schools because they think, well, why would you train a child on this software when there's 10 different software packages coming, not necessarily realizing the monopoly that sort of awaits them. So I think that this is it's a change that the likes of which we will never have seen in all of history, because it will happen within months, not years. The development and the improvements, even in the space of 12 months, have been totally insane. And I'm one of the guys who follows the various YouTubers that put weekly updates out there, and I'm struggling to keep up. So for somebody who's got their head in the sand, they're going to wake up one day and realize that the world's changed around them.
Yeah, I mean, it's It's really interesting. You said it's going to be omnipresent. That's the way you feel about it. It's going to be in everything, everywhere.
Yeah. So at the moment, you're already seeing it. You're already seeing it being touted by marketing teams, okay, who call things AI when it's not AI, right? That's one issue, but that's probably a separate conversation for another day. But now that AI has become like the buzzword, you've got Canva with AI, you've got, you know, Teams with AI. It's not really AI. Basically, it's a highly trained algorithm. It's a piece of software that's been developed to do a certain task. That's not necessarily true AI. But what I think will happen is that it will become omnipresent because it will be woven into human behavior. And so it becomes habitual. It's not like okay, it's 11 o'clock, I'm going to start using my AI now. It's just like social media. It's just woven into your automatic behavior. And I think that it will end up complementing or supplementing pretty much everything that we do every time we interact with tech.
There was another thing you mentioned, which was that AI allows you to compete with bigger competitors. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the challenges that we've had as a business is that we have a very unique product with no competitors. Okay. And in some ways that's a negative, because what I could have done with really is a really crappy competitor with a really big marketing budget. Yeah. Because then what that does is it puts skirting board heating as a technology on the map. Okay. And then we become the best at doing that. Instead, we've been like a very quiet voice in a very loud marketplace where there's 20 different radiator manufacturers, there's 50 different underfloor heating manufacturers, boilers, heat pumps, construction companies, all vying for attention. So for us, we've had to be very clever in leveraging technology that works outside of the normal rules of engagement. Okay, so the way that marketing teams are trained and the way that marketing degrees are taught, another reason why I think that going to university to do marketing probably a waste of 50 grand and 4 years, is because they teach you the ordinary rules of engagement, okay, which is let's do case studies and let's do blog posts and let's talk about newsletters and let's talk about web traffic. And obviously all of those things are important, but I would argue you could learn them from YouTube. Education cannot keep up with the rate at which technology is changing. All right. And as a business, as a small business, we've had to leverage those outside opportunities. So social media has been a huge one for us. We just this week tipped over the scales of 100,000 followers on Instagram, which is 10 times the amount of reach that our biggest competitors have got. And our biggest competitors have got marketing budgets in the millions, and they have social media teams dedicated to doing it. Whereas we're absolutely smashing it basically with just CapCut and our installers doing videos on their phone. And I see AI, to tenuously link it back to that, I see AI as another one of those levers that small businesses can pull whilst the big businesses aren't looking. So the way I often describe it to people is that if you imagine you're on a motorway with 3 lanes, okay, AI is like the 4th lane opening up, right? And all the people sat in traffic are looking at that lane going, is it open? Is it safe? Can I use it? Are we allowed? Am I going to get in trouble? They're asking all these questions. Meanwhile, the small businesses have all pulled into that lane and they're zipping down the outside. And that's the way I see it, that we're using it to do the job of 10 people because we can't afford a marketing team of 10 people. We can afford a marketing team of 1.
That's I love the analogy, and I like how you articulate that. That's really demonstrating the value of it, I think. Talk to me more about, like you mentioned just in passing there, you have your installers taking video when they're working, and they're doing that knowing that that's then useful in for you in marketing, right?
Yeah, so what it took me a long time to do with the installers was actually get it into their heads that the rubbish looking content is okay, right? Because they love the product so much, they love the business, and they want to do well. When you say to them like, "Can you get some videos of your install this week for me?" They would come back to me with nothing and say, the house was a bit messy, or the lighting wasn't right, or there was furniture everywhere, and these kind of excuses for not creating video content. And I tried to explain to them that we're in the world now where authenticity is king, okay, which is totally adverse to the AI generated content, but being authentic is like the new currency. Yeah. So what I say to the installers is just video what you've got and give it to me. Just video what you've got and give it to me. Doesn't matter if the house is a mess. Doesn't matter if it's not the perfect lighting, if it's not perfect weather. Just complete an installation. Give me a time lapse on your phone, on an iPhone. It doesn't need to be special cameras and lighting and everything else. Just give me that, and then we basically do like quick edits of those installation videos. We post them, and we get in the region of 4 or 5 million views a month.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to dig into there. It strikes me that you've created a culture of like, I think that's a cultural thing where you can get people to contribute to areas that maybe are outside of like, I'm sure the installers are not expert videographers, for example, and you've got them to go out and get this incredibly valuable content, because that's what it is. You have taught them about the value of imperfect content, and that's something, I mean, this is the fact that we're speaking right now, we're speaking on a live stream, and as I mentioned to you before we went live, one of the reasons why I do this live is as a forcing function, because otherwise I would be tempted to get overly perfectionist about editing, whereas when it's live, it's one and done, and I can't go back and change it afterwards. That's one of the reasons why we're live now. And
Perfection is the enemy of the good.
Yeah, and so what's interesting then is if we tie that back to the concept of AI and authenticity, because I think this is one of the issues, is that people feel like a lot of AI generated content is inauthentic. And I know that you create a lot of content using AI. So can you tell me a little bit about how you think about authenticity in content creation and marketing, and then with regard to AI?
Yeah, so AI is a tool, okay, and I'm part of like an AI group on Facebook, and I see questions that pop up on there going, does anybody have any good ways of making sure that of finding out how AI can make me money? And it's like, no. Okay, it's like holding up a hammer and saying, how can this hammer make me money? Well, it could build you a house, or it could build a shed, or it could knock down a wall. Like, you use the tool. It doesn't just do it for you. It's not a money printing machine. Okay, so somebody who is highly educated with great ideas with AI will always be better than somebody who's not got a clue what they're talking about with AI. Okay, so if you use AI to leverage the knowledge that you've already got, so for example, I have knowledge about sales and marketing, I have knowledge about low carbon heating systems, I have knowledge about construction technology. That's all in my head, right? Now, the challenge that I've had on a personal level is often articulating those thoughts so freely, like I'm doing now. Okay, so I'm just talking to you now effectively like a large language model. I'm just words are just coming out of my face, right? And I'm not really thinking about what the next sentence is. That's natural to me. I can do that. I can hold a conversation with anybody. The problem I have is then getting that down on paper, and also having the discipline to sit there for an hour and write it down. And once I've written it, go back and say, does it make sense? Is the sentence structure right? What about my grammar and all of those things? So what I've done is I think I've been able to create authentic content that doesn't have the same level of labor, which is quite strange. It's a little bit like somebody baking a cake. It's somebody, even though the cake is worse than a cake you'd buy from Asda, yeah, it's nice that they made it because they put the effort in. You appreciate the effort, not necessarily the cake. Yeah. And sometimes that's the case with content. It's like, we appreciate the effort you've gone to more than the actual content that you've done. But I think that that's starting to turn on its head now. I think people are going, I just want the value. Okay. I don't want to read a book on, how to grow a social media following. I want to watch a 60-second Instagram reel on how to grow an Instagram following. So what I do is I use AI to dump my thoughts into it, basically, and then I ask it to effectively tidy up what I'm saying. So I suppose if you want an actual practical example of doing that, is I will have the ChatGPT's advanced voice product on my phone in the car, like I'm having a conversation, and it comes up on hands-free in the car, right? So when I leave, I click go, it pops up on my hands-free thing, literally like I'm on the phone to somebody, and I'll say good morning, blah blah blah, and I don't even know why I'm having a conversation with it, but it starts to feel more natural, right? And then I'll say, I'd love to write an article about how not teaching about heat pump installations in colleges is going to lead to a huge shortage of trades within the next 5 years. And then it will ask me questions, and I will talk to it, and I will waffle on like I'm doing now. And then once it's got all that information, I'll say, can you condense my thoughts in my tone of voice into an easy to read blog post? And it does that. So what that means is it means I actually turn the content out. Previously, I'd have had that idea and gone, oh, I'd love to write a blog about that, and then never done it.
This is one of the true powers of AI, which is taking unstructured ideas and thoughts and turning them into structured ideas and thoughts. And this is why I would recommend to everybody that, again, going back to a culture, that you start to instill a culture where it's acceptable to record your business meetings. And that's one of the places where we see a lot of value, where you can start to take these kind of unstructured conversations and start to turn them into structured meeting notes, maybe even plans. We can take a conversation and turn that into something like a Gantt chart directly from the transcript using something like Claude, where you've got this Gantt chart with your timelines and your different dependencies and things like that. And that all comes from a single conversation, and it's just done automatically. The power of those tools in taking that unstructured input, I think that's one of the biggest powers, and that's what you're talking about here, is when you're saying these are just words coming out of your face. It's like, yeah, but there's a lot of insights and key ideas in that kind of unstructured stream of words that an AI can then tidy up for you and turn into something that's really, really valuable.
Yeah, exactly. It always frustrated me. Right? I did business studies A level, right? And there was somebody who sat on my sort of like cluster of tables when I was in sixth form college. And if she's watching now, I mean, it's highly unlikely, but she was totally useless. She was totally useless, but she was great at writing. So she was great at passing exams. And the business studies A level exam was about writing. And I was really good at business. I was the ideas person. I was like, what about this? What about that? What about the other? And I always got great feedback in like the class, and the teacher was always like, loved having me in there, and I loved being in there. When it came to the exams, I was hopeless. I was hopeless because I couldn't give them what they wanted, which was the right sentence structure and the right phrasing and the right buzzwords and all of those things. Whereas now I can just talk at this thing and get it to effectively condense and relay my thoughts in my tone of voice, with my tone of voice.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? How do you actually set it up so that it actually sounds like you and doesn't sound like kind of this robotic, in a world of fast moving business and all that rubbish that it comes up with, demystify and delve and all this kind of stuff? How do you set it up so that it doesn't do that for you?
Well, it depends. So if you are writing to it, so if you're not using advanced voice, I think the easiest way of doing that is setting up like a custom GPT and putting in examples of stuff that you have gone to the effort of writing. So every now and again, I mean, like the other night was an example. Every now and again, I'll have like a wave of capability, and I'll just start typing away, and I can write a blog article. But it's rare, and I have to be in the right frame of mind and everything else. So I do have examples of stuff that I have actually written, and my writing style is my talking style. I just write how I talk. I even put in sometimes like and are even in my writing. Okay, so I have like documentation of my tone of voice, and I just put that into the custom GPT and use that as a reference, and basically say using my tone of voice. If I'm talking to it and it's in a standalone conversation, I will basically ask it to listen or pay attention to my tone of voice as I'm talking and use my kind of language. And what I find is that when I actually read the text that it's produced, is that a lot of that text is actually verbatim what I've said. It uses exactly what I've said. It might just rearrange the order or change the sentence structure or add some grammar to it or take away a part where I've gone off on a tangent. So yeah, it gets my tone of voice because I'm giving it my tone of voice as part of the input.
Yeah, this is very clever using a custom GPT, and I love what you said about the fact that it's repeating back verbatim what you've said. It's just tidying it up a bit, and this for me is one of the key things where I feel like AI really is a tool because you're providing the expertise. If you don't provide the expertise to it, then it's going to go out into its kind of sea of average training data that it's been trained on originally, and it doesn't have that expert knowledge that you provided it. I think that's where all of that really bland, mediocre stuff comes from. But what you're talking about is you're actually giving it a lot to work with. You're giving it a lot of input. You're giving it some suggestions and instructions as well. And I think that's what makes it the output so much better for you than other people are. Where somebody comes along and they say, write me a blog post about commercial heating. It's going to spit out a whole bunch of garbage that's not useful for anybody and won't ever get people, like, certainly won't be getting millions of views, so it really depends on the input. It's garbage in, garbage out, like computers have been for decades.
Correct, yeah. And also with SEO, for example, SEO is now searching for personal experience. So within blog posts and within articles, it's looking for language that's like, for example, when we launched this product, we found that this happened, and they, and so on and so on. So it's looking for personalized experience. So if you just ask it to write me a blog on thermostat, there's going to be no specific references in there. So if you think that AI is some sort of SEO hack, trust me, Google will be working very hard to get around that as well.
They certainly are. I think they're a bit worried about that. You said that AI slowly becomes part of your workflow.
Yeah.
How have you found that being the case?
Personal interest, okay, in productivity, and I think there's this kind of toxic productivity. I found myself basically slipping into the wrong stream of productivity a few times, where it's like, I want to get up at 5 and I want to go to the gym and I'm going to do a cold plunge and then I'm going to do this. You just think, stop doing that. Okay. So I have a personal interest in productivity. My problem is that I always struggle to switch off. So then I started using like time blocking to say, I'm going to do this in this time and this in that time and that in that time. And if I finish it early, I will just stop. I'll go, well, you know what? I finished 20 minutes early. I'm going to have 20 minutes to just chill. Whereas previously I'd be like, on to the next. So I've noticed that AI helped me do a few things quicker. And so I got the bug. I think it's like a bit of a bug. And then you're like, what else can it do? What else can it do? But when introducing it to new people who don't currently use it, the easiest way I find to make it exciting is, and I've done that with people who work here, is write down 5 to 10 things that you're crap at, that you are crap at, and there might be, and I don't mean like unicycling, I mean I can't take, for example, I can't take notes and talk at the same time. I cannot do it. I've tried doing it. And what happens is that I go, oh, that was interesting. And then I go to write it, and then I miss what they were saying next. And then you're blagging them that you heard what they said then. Okay. So there's a phrase that my dad gave me, which is, you can't ride two horses with one arse. Right. Now,
I love it.
Now, for me, AI can be your second arse. Yeah, it can write the notes for you whilst you pay attention on what you're good at. It's like having a PA. So, for example, if you say to somebody, like with customer service, that's how it came about with customer service. You know, what do you hate? What do you hate about customer service? Oh, I hate it when customers come ask me the most benign questions that are basic. It's the same question every single time, you know, and we have a video on the website, and we have it in the instructions, and we have a note on the email that goes out with the order about it. Yet people don't do any of those things, and then the email is asking. Right, okay. So we worked on automated responses. Well, they are miserable to read and depressing as a customer to receive. So say, for example, in an email chain, our customer, John, has just got back from holiday. Yeah. And he says it in his email, hi, Lauren, just got back from holiday. Noticed that we've not received any of this, and we need it to complete our installation. Rather than an email going back saying, you need part number 77652, best regards, customer service. He goes back and says, dear John, hope your holiday was okay. Hope you had a nice time. Hope you're settling back in. Hope you brought the weather with you, whatever it says, yeah? And the part that you're looking for is this. Don't worry, it's a very common mistake to make, and so on and so on. So you take that pain away from customer service, and then people within the workplace feel it within the day-to-day. They're like, oh, great. Oh, that thing that was really annoying me is now no longer annoying me. And then the penny drops. It's like, what else can we use it for? What else can we use it for? What else can we use it for? And then now I find people coming to me saying, can we have a function that does this? Can we have a function that does that? And so we're constantly leveling up because everybody in the organization is on board, as opposed to me standing there with a whip going, you know, you must have AI in your workflow. It falls in naturally because it is useful.
I think one really crucial part there is you mentioned that people feel better about their jobs because they don't have to do this thing that's really annoying or horrible.
Yeah.
I think people gloss over that a bit. I mean, like, for me, that's a really crucial part, right?
Yeah, exactly. So with customer service, let's say, for example, customer service is an ideal one because customer service is a job that most people hate dealing with. And if you're a business and you find a really, really good customer service manager, somebody who is unfazable, somebody who is permanently positive, somebody who is permanently helpful, then pay them whatever they want because they're impossible to find, right? And if they are like that, they're not like that for very long because eventually they get hammered into submission, right?
Yeah.
Whereas an AI bot or an AI, agent, if you want, effectively has unlimited patience, and it never has a bad day, and its cat never dies, and it's never late for work, and it's never overworked. So if you have a really busy day on customer service, and to be fair, we only have one customer service person in the business now, and even they also spend most of their day doing technical video calls with installers. Our customer service requirement in terms of human interaction has fallen to next to nothing. And that means that dreary job that nobody wants to have is not being done by anybody, really. The heavy lifting's been taken off them.
This is crucial. I did a project recently with a lab where they test blood samples. And so we had some really intelligent, highly trained, educated, and expensive lab scientists. And we were looking at what they were doing, and they were spending a huge amount of time just doing simple data entry, taking in sheets of paper and typing into the computer what the data that was on there. And then when they were getting the results of the testing back, they had to spend a lot of time processing and analyzing some really basic stuff. And so what we were able to do was build some simple tools, and it took the data entry job down by about 90%. So the best part, and like they saved a lot of money by doing this. They save tens to hundreds of thousands per year. And actually they're even able to scale up and process more samples now. But the best part of it was actually seeing all of these really smart people who can focus on the important parts of their work. Instead of data entry and checking spreadsheets, they can actually look at the analysis and look at the maps and say, oh, look, these samples are coming from this area of the country. We were able to map the townland onto a map, and they could see, oh yeah, look, we're getting a lot of positives from this area of the country. And now let's think about why that is. That's such a much more valuable use of their time than typing in numbers off of a sheet of paper. And that's the kind of work where I see AI being incredibly valuable, where we're letting humans do stuff that's more important or more difficult or just more fun. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, 150 years ago, 80% of the population's involved in farming. It's like, and now what? You got three guys in a tractor, harvesting millions of tons worth of food. So you've got this leveling up where you're effectively unlocking. I see it as unlocking human potential, not as robbing jobs. Okay, a lot of people see it as job robbing, but I don't think it is. I think that jobs will change. I think we'll move to a higher level, and obviously everybody says, well, technology is just getting faster and faster and faster. Well, we don't really know how fast we can develop if we aren't spending our time working on all of these things, And I've got a 4-year-old who's just started school. So you see, like, I see her now doing the same stuff at school, other than computers, right? I wasn't doing computers in 1996, but other than that, she's doing pretty much the same thing I did at school, which is like foundational stuff. And I'm starting to wonder, at what point in her school career is her education going to change from mine? Because in reality, I've never needed to know much about the ancient Egyptians, right? And I know that the challenge of learning about the ancient Egyptians was not so that I knew what Tutankhamun had for breakfast. It was actually to get me in the mindset of doing research, sitting down for an hour and doing some hard work. That's what you're training students to do. You're not training them to learn about the Egyptians. You're training them to do the graft. Well, how does that change when you don't need to do that anymore? You don't need to sit down and grind it out for 2 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, there's arguments that the job of education is prepare us for the workforce. Is it to prepare us to be a citizen? Is it as a place to keep kids locked up so that they don't go throwing stones through windows for there's a lot of different aspects of it. And then there's there's the idea of creating a broad education where we should know about things like ancient history, and we should know things like basic and maybe even some advanced maths, things like that. And also, if we don't teach everybody or a kind of broad strokes of population, then how do we find the people who want to go on and become scientists and things like that? So I think that there's so many, I think education is so fascinating when it comes to AI, because there's so many different aspects to it. There's so many kind of dependencies. There's so many different ways to approach it. And I think it's one of the areas where they're really struggling to figure out how to deal with this, because a lot of places see using AI as cheating. And it's like there's people who are worried about getting kicked out of college because the way that they write sounds a little bit too AI for their professor, and so their professor has accused them of plagiarism, when in reality that's just the way that they write. I see examples of people talking about this all the time online, and that's kind of scary as well. That somebody gets falsely accused of plagiarism and kicked out of college because they write quite formally. So. There's so many different aspects to that as well,
Well, exactly. If the AI is trained on human behavior, it replicates human behavior, and we are human. So, the better it gets, the harder it is going to be to distinguish what is and what isn't AI. I think for me, just in terms of how it's going to change things in future in the job market, is that I think that for many people, like you say, it will liberate those people who are really only using 10% of their total bandwidth. That, those are the people who end up getting stuck, and they might be getting paid enough money to be comfortable, but they never push themselves. And before they know it, they're 65, they're being given a Rolex and saying, thanks very much for 40 years of graft. And that's, that's your career done. And they go, oh, I wish I was a painter. Like,
Yeah.
Go and do that then, go and do that if that's, that's where you need to make money. But what will be interesting is how that impacts the economy and how we shift as an economy, because really right now our economy is based on scarcity of knowledge. So look, like law firms, for example, I don't understand this particular part of law, so I need to go and find a lawyer who specializes in this part of law. Well, what happens when you have this effectively a database that you can call upon at a moment's notice? I really couldn't call it. I really couldn't call it at the moment as to how that's going to change things. But all I'm doing is I'm sure as not going to be left holding the baby, going, I'm going to be the one who says it's all a fad. I'm going to ride the wave.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Ethan. It's been great. I noticed, by the way, Jay just said on LinkedIn, we were talking about how you talk to ChatGPT. He said, that's exactly how I talk to ChatGPT. I do an interview, talk until I'm done, and then get the AI to sort it out in a framework that I've built after. It's super easy. And this is exactly how people should be using these tools, is talk to them, let them make sense of what you're saying and turn that into something productive, and basically using it to pull the expertise out of ourselves. I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Idea generation and basically sanity checking,
Yeah. Is there one piece of advice that you'd share with business leaders who are listening to this about how they might integrate AI? Any tips for them?
Start off with the pain points. Start off with the pain points. I wouldn't start going into. I definitely wouldn't search on YouTube how to use AI. Okay, because just like putting generic information into AI, you're going to get generic information back that's not relevant. What you want to do as a business leader is look at the business, look over the business, and find out where the pain points are, and start off by trying to address them and finding out how they can be addressed. Because once you have done that first one, once you've tackled that first challenge and you've seen, the penny will drop, not just for you, but for other people within the business. And once people have that sort of lean mindset of how do we improve things, how do we make things better, how can we use this, as opposed to is this a threat, then you'll find that the whole business starts to accelerate, particularly for small businesses. If you're a small business like ours, that's we've got a turnover of about 3 million and 25 employees. We are like the perfect size of business to really leverage it. So I would say, just get on with it. Don't wait for the next bus. Get on this one.
Awesome. And I just want to mention to anybody listening to this who is looking for some help getting started, I've got a new book which is called An Absolute Beginner's Guide to Using AI. So you can find that at aipowered.biz/guide. And that's got lots of tips on getting started and doing stuff like creating the custom GPTs that we mentioned on here, and basically just how to use AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude to generate ideas. And it's for anybody who has no tech background. It's very simple explanation of how to use AI in plain English. So that's An Absolute Beginner's Guide to Using AI. Ethan, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking about AI. Your business is Discrete Heat. Where can people find you online?
Discreteheat.com.
Awesome. And go check that out if you're looking for heating solutions, or you just want to see some cool marketing. Go check out all their social channels, and you might learn